Hello, and thanks for joining me. Today we're talking about nothing.
Okay, I'm waiting for the punchline.
Broadly speaking, there are three kinds of nothing, and we're going to introduce specific terms to distinguish between them, because one of the big problems when talking about this subject is the ambiguity in the word nothing. It's like the prefix a in atheism. It can have more than one meaning. And if all parties in a conversation aren't talking about the same thing, then they're not having the same conversation. So the first kind of nothing we're going to call V-nothing. V stands for vacuum. It's what you get when you take a vacuum chamber and empty it of any and all objects, including particles. A V-nothing is, for all intents and purposes, theoretical. We have not invented and will never be able to invent a perfect vacuum chamber. The region of space inside the chamber would be by definition at a temperature of absolute zero, and achieving that would be like achieving a 100% efficient system of energy transfer. It's not even theoretically possible. Also, there's no known way to keep weakly interacting particles from entering a chamber. Even if the walls of your chamber were an entire light year in thickness and made of lead, this would only stop about half the neutrinos from entering the chamber. Nor will you find a perfect vacuum in space. Even the vast nothingness between stars will have a material density of about 1 atom per cubic centimeter. Which is why starships will need a really good shield of some kind, because if you're going near the speed of light, those things hurt. So we'll say that V-nothing means either a perfect or a near-perfect vacuum. Now, when Lawrence Krauss wrote A Universe from Nothing in 2012, he was talking about a V-nothing. He was talking about how a universe can arise spontaneously from a perfect or near-perfect vacuum. And in my view, he succeeded in showing that a universe, including black holes and bicycles and Britney Spears, can spontaneously arise from a near-perfect vacuum. And so apologists feel that this kind of nothing is much too something. Because where did the vacuum come from? This is what I was talking about. This is why I think we need specialized terms. Because even a perfect V-nothing has space-time, and it has the laws of physics, and it has quantum fields, and Higgs fields, and gravitational fields, and it's positively teeming with stuff. Just not the kind of stuff that floats around bumping into other stuff like billiard balls. Apologists feel that calling such a thing nothing amounts to cheating, and from a philosopher's perspective, if not a scientist's perspective, it's hard to blame them. So let's move on. The second type of nothing we're going to call M-nothing. M stands for minimum energy state. According to quantum field theory, the V-nothing we were talking about, the vacuum we all know and love, is actually a false vacuum. It's not a stable vacuum, but rather a metastable vacuum. It's stable, in other words, in the same sense that the egg in this picture is stable. It's perfectly balanced on the pencil point, and it'll stay there as long as nothing knocks it over, like an earthquake or a tiny gust of wind. This guy is awesome, by the way. He's like the Mozart of balancing things on top of other things. But it's possible in theory for the vacuum of space to tip over, as it were, and for a region of space to achieve a true vacuum with zero energy, or the minimum possible amount of energy. We're not entirely sure what would happen to our universe if that happened, but it's a scenario that gives nightmares to scientists and science fiction writers alike. We might end up with space-time and the laws governing physics, causality, and so forth, but no matter, no energy, no quantum fields, no nothing at all for these laws to work with. It's been theorized that new universes could result from false vacuum collapse, that this, in fact, may even be the cause of our own universe. And it's possible that in the future, we'll have a theoretical model for a universe spontaneously arising from a pre-existing minimum energy vacuum. So again, apologists feel that this nothing is much too something. Which brings us to the third kind of nothing, P-nothing. P stands for philosophical. Philosophical nothingness is the complete absence of anything that is anything. This means no space and time, no matter and energy, no quantum fields, no ideas, no concepts, no laws of physics or metaphysics, just plain nothing. This is the kind of nothing that apologists are talking about when they say something can't come from nothing, or from nothing nothing comes, or how much of an idiot do you have to be to think that all this came from nothing? All these arguments depend on the same proposition, which we'll call ND, or the nothingness dilemma. ND can be stated like this: either God exists, or P-nothing is causally prior to the universe. That's what they're saying. Either a God exists, or something came from nothing, and specifically from P-nothing. Here's the big secret. ND is indefensible. There's no way to defend the proposition that one of these propositions must be true, because even on the face of it, it is possible for God to not exist and for P-nothing not to be causally prior to the universe. The only way to say that that's not the case is to say that there's some law of logic or metaphysics that we haven't discovered yet that makes the non-existence of God and the existence of the universe without P-nothing being causally prior to it contradictory. They can't simply assert that it is contradictory. They have to show, using known laws of logic and metaphysics, that it is contradictory. It does no good, for example, to say that we have never observed something coming from a P-nothing because there is no P-nothing to observe to see if something comes out of it. And there can't be because if there's a P-nothing, there are no observers. So it's trivially true that we've never seen something come from nothing, and you can't derive the non-trivial from the trivial. There is an additional problem with appealing to ND to support the idea that God exists. The latter disjunct, that P-nothing was causally prior to the universe, is usually dismissed as being absurd or impossible, but they have no way of showing that it's absurd or impossible, because consider all the principles that they appeal to. Nothing comes from nothing. Something only comes from something. Everything that begins to exist has a cause, and so on. Let's say that the letter C represents the set of all these proposed causal principles. Now consider this. If P-nothing obtains, then no C obtains. This is true by the definition of P-nothing. In the state of philosophical nothingness, no laws governing the behavior of anything exist. If there are any such laws in existence, then you don't have P-nothing, you have P-something. A law governing the behavior of something is itself, philosophically speaking, something. So anytime it's true that nothing comes from nothing, you don't have nothing, you have something. Apologists will usually respond to this by saying it doesn't matter if there is no principle preventing something coming from nothing, because there's no principle in place either that says that something can come from nothing if nothing exists. But the only reason that fact would matter is if you couple it with a principle saying that but for something allowing something to come from nothing, nothing comes from nothing. But if that principle exists, then once again, you don't have nothing, you have something. Nothing means nothing. The only way around this is for the apologist, who has insisted until now that all the nothings are much too something, to insist that this nothing isn't something enough. They will insist that in a P-nothing, absolutely nothing exists except, somehow, for some reason, the laws of causality. We'll call this a P-nothing Lite. And then ND becomes either God exists or P-nothing Lite is causally prior to the universe. But this seems even more difficult to defend. Why would an atheist ever have to concede that before the universe existed, there was philosophical nothingness except for the laws that say that nothing can come from philosophical nothingness? The cosmological argument simply does not work without the atheist's cooperation, which means it can never be convincing to the atheist. Now let's talk about the implications of nothing for another apologetic argument, the design argument, specifically the fine-tuning argument. We'll introduce a fourth kind of nothing, and we'll call it an F-nothing, F for fine-tuning. This is where nothing exists except for human beings, the immediate environment in which humans live, the physical constants necessary for both humans and the immediate environment to exist, and possibly God. Let's stipulate that in an F-nothing, the cosmological constants are more likely given the existence of a God who created the F-nothing for the existence of human beings than given the non-existence of God. But the only reason why this would be the case is if we look around the F-nothing, nothing but humans and their immediate environment, it's pretty obvious that humans are the entire point of the universe existing. Now let's take this into the real world, where we find a lot more things than what we find in the F-nothing. And specifically, a lot more things that interact with the things that we found in the F-nothing. Humans interact with places, things, and ideas all the time. The habitat in which humans live is not just a dome containing oxygen, heat, food, and maybe a comfortable place to sleep, but an incredible variety of animal, vegetable, and mineral phenomena. And the physical constants don't just apply to the surface of the Earth, but to the entire observable universe, which is dozens of billions of light years across, and contains uncountable galaxies and other stellar objects. The same laws that permit humanity to exist in this universe also permit or fail to permit a great many things, the vast majority of which we can deduce, but will never have any kind of meaningful interaction with. So when apologists refer to the fact that the constants of the universe are exactly what is required for humans to exist in the universe, the evidence that they are citing is a series of natural regularities which apply to a volume of space dozens of billions of light years across, under which the existence of humanity, a race of beings living in a bubble a few thousand miles across, is possible. Does this evidence render likely the existence of a being who created the universe for the sake of the survival and flourishing of humanity? I would argue that the so-called fine-tuning of the universe constitutes evidence for the God only to the extent that humanity appears to be the whole point of the universe existing, and the extent to which humanity appears to be the whole point of the universe existing is virtually zero. Think of it like a hand of cards. Here we have a 2 of clubs, 7 of diamonds, 8 of spades, 3 of spades, 10 of diamonds. You poker players out there might call this C nothing, C for cards. But what are the odds of getting this particular hand by chance? Exactly the same as getting a royal flush in spades. So which theory makes this picture more likely? That I purposely assembled a hand of 2 of clubs, 7 of diamonds, 8 of spades, 3 of spades, 10 of diamonds? Or that I just grabbed a deck in my house, shuffled it, dealt out 5 cards, and took a picture of it? The answer is, it depends on the extent to which there's something special about 2 of clubs, 7 of diamonds, 8 of spades, 3 of spades, 10 of diamonds. Now you card players out there, you tell me, is there anything special about this hand? So by contrasting the universe we have today with an F nothing, we can understand why the fine-tuning argument is not compelling or even very good evidence for God. And by comparing the other different kinds of nothing, we can understand why the cosmological arguments are not very good evidence for God. Next time we'll look at what atheism can establish when working with something instead of nothing. If you enjoyed this video and want to help my channel grow, please hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons. And if you want to share your thoughts about nothing or about something or about balancing something on top of something else, leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video, which we hope will be something. I'm David John Wellman, and the rest is up to you.